In this video, we will try to understand what is the good folder structure to maintain for any backend development or any microservice or any API or any express router or any kind of backend folder structure. What are the typical elements or what are the typical folders which you need to maintain, and what are the different standards and how you can segregate them, right? And what are the different important files in Node.js project which you need to understand, right? So let me create a I'm starting with a new folder called as getting started, right? So first thing is what you need here is you have to make it an npm project, right? So for that you just have to do npm init. So to make any Node.js project, to get started with any Node.js project, you just first have to run the npm init command. So this npm init command will create or will ask you few details like what is the project name, what is the version of the project, what is the description. So this is a sample project in code sapiens. Then you have entry point, what is the main file in your project, that is by default it is saying index.js. Yes, perfect. Then test command, if you want to run any test, if you want to host it in any Git repository, what is the command, what are the keywords, and what is the main your application is doing, all of this. And author name, I can add my name, right? And license, and that's it. So is everything okay? So this is the file which is going to be created for us, and then yes. So see, you have one file created, packet.json. So this packet.json is very important file, and it is one of the main file which says or which holds a lot of information about any JavaScript oriented or Node.js oriented applications, right? So basically I will create another file, index.js. So this file will be the entry point. So whenever you want to start your application, the main starting point of the code will be written over here. So let me create entire folder structure, what is a good practice to be followed when you're working with a Node.js backend project, right? So first thing is adapters, right? So first let me create all the folders which are needed for it, and then I'm going to create another folder called as helpers, right? Then another folder called as services, right? And another folder, yes, these are enough. So adapters are the external connections which you make to other resources like database, Azure, or message broker. So all the code related to that database or connections or Azure or anything, because it is an adapter to you, so that all the adapters will be going over here like this, db.js. So here you will have all your db initialization, retrying logic, and similarly you will have message broker. So maybe you are using RabbitMQ, maybe you are using anything, right? So adapters, all the connection related to any external stuff, whatever you are connecting to, that will go over here. Helpers are the utility methods. So maybe in your application or in your project, you are having utility functions like sum of difference between dates, sum of dates. So all the functions which can be reusable. Helpers are reusable functions, utility functions, reusable utility functions throughout your application. So all that helpers, for you cannot generally differentiate, but they can be used anywhere in your project, right? Then in services you have three different subfolders, that is models, and then you have controllers, and then you have, yes, these are enough, right? Controllers and models. So what are services? So services are nothing but all the core business logic will be present here, will be present here. So basically our index.js file is going to call or is going to initiate all of this. So let's say if you are starting an Express server, then in the Express server initialization will happen in the index.js because it is the main entry point, and the different routes or different URLs which your application is going to expose, it will be inside the controller. So controller will have the entry points to your application, like different routes, maybe like this, get users slash orders or slash homepage or anything, right? Models indeed again will have new folder entities. So inside models, entities are nothing but your DB schema properties. Whatever table or whatever MongoDB, you have to define the schema, right? So all that will go inside the models, and then you have repositories. So here all the DB related logic. So you are fetching the data, you are querying the data, you are inserting the data. All that logic goes over here. So this is DB related operations like inserting, querying, and updating, anything. All such logic will go into the repositories, right? So it is a good practice to follow thin controllers and fat models. So thin controllers and fat models is a design pattern, which says all your controllers. So say, let's say I call a controller to say, give me all the details of this user. So what the controller is going to do is, it is going to just take the request from the user, and call a function inside the repository of the user, and it fetches the data, and whatever model gives me, that I'll simply return to the user. So thin controller means in controllers, you don't put any logic, just they are invokers for the DB repositories. That is what called as thin controllers. So controller doesn't have any logic, all the logic is inside the models. That is, hence they are called as fat models. This is one of the best design practice which I have personally faced, and I think this will work out really well for all the microservices, right? Then when you want to start your application, right? I'm simply defining some function, console.log hello world, right? And let me install a dependency. How do I install that? npm install minimist save, right? So what this is going to do, so every application will have its own dependencies, right? So when I ran this command, I get to see a new node modules got created and a package.log.json created, and inside package.json there is a dependencies object. So let me delete all of this, or let me delete, right? And let me show you clearly back, right? So when I run npm install any dependencies, right, all those dependencies will be listed here, and we'll understand what is package.log, and node modules is all the modules or all the dependencies which are required for your project, and you will put it inside the git ignore. So when your repository is in a in your repository is published inside in a git repository or a bitbucket or anything, so node modules are ignored. This is because when the node modules are ignored and when somebody else asks for your code, by just running npm install, it installs all the dependencies which are present based on the version. So see here, this is what npm install command does. Npm install command checks for all the list of dependencies, then it goes to the node.js node package manager, and over there it finds this npm module and it installs over here, right? So that's what happened. So I deleted the node modules and I ran the npm install command. So it checks for all the dependencies in packet.json and it executes. Now, what is the importance of packet.log, right? So packet.json is basically everything. It contains all the information, and if you want to run any application, right, then you can simply say here a command, right, node index.js. So if you want to run a command, what you do like this, right? Node index.js, node index.js, right, over here. But when your application grows, you want to do a lot of things, not just running the command. Maybe you want to compile and run it back, right? So instead of running a file directly, what I'll do is I'll say npm start. See, when I ran npm start, it executed this script. And see, getting started, node index.js, and then it is working out. So packet.json contains all the scripts to start your application, and also you can add any number of custom scripts like this. So in development mode, you want to run it with nodemon, then you can do that. So how do you run that? Npm run dev. So now your application is started in the dev mode. So scripts, dependencies. Now the importance of packet.log JSON is that, see here in the dependencies array, dependencies object, you see a small cap, right? So what is the importance of this cap? So this cap says that when a new version of Minimist application or library is released, you can download, or this application will download all the latest versions which are less than 2.0.0. So this cap says that you can download any versions which, like, let's say today 1.2.5 is there, and in future they released another version 1.2.6. then with this cap it says that you can go and download the latest version, but if this guy releases 2.0.0, it won't. So it will download any version which is greater than 1 and less than 2, the next number. But if you remove this cap, then what is this? It is always trying to install, it will always try to install this 1.2.5, and it never searches or never goes or compromises to download other versions. So, but if you don't want even this to happen, then your packet.log comes into the picture. So packet.log is basically it holds all the dependencies of dependencies, right? So here you will have a fixed version, so you don't have any cap and all. So when you want a fixed lock on the version, then instead of running npm install, you can run npm ci. Now what npm ci does is it goes into this packet.log and it installs all the dependencies which are fixed versions. So packet.log is nothing but locking on the version number, right? Locking on the version number. So this is what packet.log is. So it locks the version number so that we are not upgrading to a future version and facing some issues, because when you release a new application or new version, maybe some things are breaking or they are deviating from the older changes. So in such cases, locking the version is very, very critical. That's all about the folder structure and important files in the Node.js.